Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the next UKPW Insider. I am the Mouthpiece, or quite simply the Mouthpiece. You know, it doesn't matter which, as long as you get it right. And today, holding up a beautiful, shiny, slammy award, it kind of looks like Dale Jone. Now, I was expecting something Gilbert. Now, I can't imagine how this works. Now, obviously, you idiots know him as Dow Jones. It is Alex Gilbert and the one and only self-proclaimed Dow Jones champion, and of course the UKPW champion.
Correct.
Dow Jones. So we're going to get to know you as obviously a bit more as Dow Jones, but we're going to get to know the man behind Dow Jones, which is something different we're going to do for UKPW Insider today, because there's a lot to cover. And the energy drinks are ready, so cheers. Here's to you.
Hey, clink. Oh wait, hang on. Do we do this digitally? Do we do it through the webcam? Clink.
Lovely.
There we go. It's going to be fun.
We'll address you as Alex. Everyone knows you're Dow Jones, so we'll address you as Alex. So, Alex, welcome. It's great to finally have you on. And how's lockdown been treating you?
If I'm really, really honest with you, very well. If I'm really honest with you, one of the things that I think a lot of the UKPW wrestlers will know is that despite my persona being so out there, outrageous and all this kind of stuff, I do consider myself a bit more of an introvert than an extrovert. So actually, if I'm honest with you, it's been quite nice not having to see lots of people. But I mean, I love everyone. Everyone's great. It's great, but there's too many people. So no, it's been very good, sir. How about yourself?
Not been too bad. It's been a little bit difficult, as it has been for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all still here. Hopefully, gradually, as I say, each day that passes is a day closer to normality, so to speak.
Yeah.
And a day closer to wrestling coming back.
I mean, that is clearly the big story in this context. Is of course there's been no real wrestling going on, and I mean, I know you've got loads of questions, and I'm sure there are people at home that have got lots of queries and things. But something to bring up straight away is we were so close. I mean, inches, millimeters away from being able to get something done in October, and then powers that be outside of anyone's control, really. Obviously, A, the virus itself, but B, the local councils. I was very keen to try and get something done, and we just missed it, which is probably for me selfishly was probably the biggest disappointment of 2020. Was I'm very keen. On a side note, again, people that do know me on things like Facebook and things, I'm very keen on mental health. And yes, the virus is a physical disease. Yes, there's lots of things, but there's a lot of mental anguish that's being created. And I was very, very keen and very, very pro to go, look, I know it's not going to be the same as what it was, but let's try and move forward. You can't change what's happened, but you can influence what's going to happen. And that was my big thing. But yeah, that's probably the big moment of 2020 for me was, we've got some big plans.
Yeah, it was such a disappointment, especially when it looked like it was, as you said, it was just so close to taking place. To be fair, all credit to UKPW, because, I mean, obviously, as an employee of UKPW, going through the very detailed context of all the safety measures, everything was covered. It would have been absolutely wonderful to have had that go ahead. But also, you've been given the opportunity as well to be able to invest a lot more in the production for UKPW. So when we do eventually be able to go back to putting shows on, fans of UKPW are not going to quite recognise the UKPW that they would normally see. Is actually going to be more scaled up, more of an experience. That's something which you and which you and Jack, aka Fantos, have spoken about UKPW becoming more of an experience at shows than what we're used to. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Oh, absolutely. Full disclosure, I'm still trying to keep a few surprises. I mean, me and Jack, or as you say, Fantos, we and actually I must throw in there as well, Martin. Martin is a huge help and a huge contributor to everything as well. And what I like about the dynamic with all of us is that I'm very like, no, let's tell everyone everything that's really cool. It's really, really exciting. We've got loads of good stuff. And then those two are sort of like pulling me back, going, whoa, horsey. Let's hold back, because the things that we've got planned, the things I can say, are one of the things that always used to disappoint me. So I suppose we'll interweave this with some of my past. I'll always remember the first time I broke into wrestling, quote unquote, and I remember being quite, not sad, that's the wrong word, or even disappointed. But I remember thinking, I'm just walking through a door. That looks awful. I'm just walking through a fire exit and going, hey, I'm Dow Jones. And I suppose something that I've definitely learned over time is that when someone, especially anyone here watching at home, who pays their good hard-earned money to have entertainment and escapism for 2 to 3 hours in a week, and we walk out of a fire exit, how are we superstars? How is that even a thing? And I get it. It's British wrestling and independent wrestling. You should have a different level, but it's a bit like if you watch even an independent film. As soon as you go through the doors of that entrance, or even the moment you buy a ticket, in my opinion, the moment you buy a ticket, you are checking your, what's the phrase? Suspension of disbelief at the door. So when you go see a Hollywood blockbuster, you know none of that makes sense. You know all of it's nonsense, but you don't some people do overly criticize it, but to enjoy it, you just sit there and you go, I'm going to enjoy this. So coming back to the wrestling thing, when I first broke in, I'm meant to be mega rich and blah, blah, blah. And then there's me walking through a fire exit. Instantly. Absolutely. Yeah, like my existence all of a sudden doesn't make any sense. Why would I be in Chatham on a Saturday and there's 20 people in the audience? And then I remember Jim Cornette. So I'm going to do lots of name dropping in this one, only because I want to try and give myself some credible.
That's awesome.
But I remember talking to Jim Cornette about this, and he said, I mean, it's a famous quote. He says it 1,000 times, but the people are paying to see people that don't look like them. They want to see the live comic book character. So again, if, I don't know, the editor who might edit this and intersplice some photos, the original Dow Jones was a banker. That was it. It was just like people didn't like bankers. So I thought, well, that's easy heat. Walk out, pretend you're rich, everyone boos you. So it's just a suit. That's it. Suit with a lime green, whatever. But as time's gone on, it's taking bits of things that I've enjoyed. So when you learn, you go, right, okay, well, I like that golden era, even the new gen sort of stuff. I like those colors and the characters. So that's where my jacket with all the tassels comes from. Is you go, no one would wear that in public, but Dow Jones will, because he's larger he's larger than life. Top hat, you don't really see a top hat outside of a wedding and maybe, I don't know, the horse racing. So I thought, yeah, okay, I'll wear that. That you look at it. And on a side note, and again, this might be good for intersplicing of footage, is secretly so many wrestlers want to wear my jacket. And the way I know this, because you're probably sitting there, Stefan, thinking, "Shut up, Alex." No, that's definitely not right.
I'm actually going to agree with you, because if those who have seen many footage and those who have attended our shows, you could actually name drop quite a few people who have worn Dow Jones's attire at some point during or after a match. Yeah,
and I think what it is, it's a certain kind of person that tends to want to do it, because as you say, when we put the content out on UKPW, we don't tend to show the in-between matches or the intermission, but of course the editor will see the footage. And the amount of times, if I'm on the first half, if I'm the last match of the first half, and I'll leave my jacket there. It became a bit of a running gag for me, is I would on purpose leave my jacket there just so I could pop myself when I went through the footage going, oh, Martin's wearing my jacket again. Oh, Buff is wearing my jacket. Oh, this guy's wearing my jacket. I don't know, this is going to sound a bit weird and I apologize, but I remember there was, I forget what show it was, but the jacket was there and there was this kid that was just looking at it, just staring up. And then I think it was Martin. It might have been Buff. I don't know. I apologize. And they obviously said to the kid, "Did you want to wear the jacket?" And it's one of the things I'm so gutted by is that this parent has taken a photo of their child wearing my jacket, and obviously it's really heavy, it's really big, and I would love to see that picture, because it's, to me, so going back to your original question about the experience, that's what I want. I want more of those moments where families can come along, and there's an element of, I know this is such a silly thing to say, but I'm a big fan of word of mouth marketing. So if we talk business for a second, if someone recommends you something and you really like that person, you will give that thing a go. So if a family says, do you know, I know wrestling's ridiculous, I know it's not your cup of tea, but I'm telling you, my daughter, my son, they loved it. They went to Gillingham at Medway Park on a Sunday. I'm telling you, next time they're there, we should all go. To me, that is the key, or one of the key principles of why UKPW was able to sustain itself for so long, and also have, and it's only until looking back at the footage now over the lockdown period that actually we did have decent crowds. A pet peeve of mine is people not necessarily giving UKPW the credit that it, I'm not saying it deserved necessarily, but actually we had 200 people regularly at Medway Park. And when you look at other promotions, nothing against those other promotions, but you look and sometimes you go, oh, you have only got 20 or 30. Don't pretend you're bigger or better. That's not to say one's better. Sorry, that's probably the wrong word, better. But there was always this, they just do families. Okay, fine. But we're trying to do something different. There's no one way to do professional wrestling. There's lots of different ways. And I really admired the vision that Anton had. This is going to be a wrestling product that families can come along to. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah, I'll stop. I could just keep rambling, Stefan, so I'll stop there. Sorry. I just caught myself. Sorry.
I mean, it's brilliant where you brought up the looking back over footage, and we've had some amazing crowds and some amazing numbers. I mean, one that always sticks in memory with me is when Dale Jones faced Carl Ashmore in the cage match. Yeah. The crowd at Medway Park was amazing. That was one of the best crowds I think we've had. They were so into it, and I mean, I also thought for the kids, the youngsters in attendance, actually the thought of we're seeing a steel cage match live in the flesh. We only see this stuff on TV, whether it be WWE, Impact Wrestling, or AEW. Let's go back to what you were talking about, your attire.
Yes, yeah. Tassels.
Have this interview without mentioning the tassels. I'm a fan of. One thing that you and I, because you and I have got to know each other quite a bit over this lockdown, which has been a pleasure. You and I are both sort of children who we're children of the golden era, the 80s.
To stop you there, Steph, you didn't even need to finish that sentence. We're just children. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, we are. That's true. But we both absolutely love. Our love's developed from the love of the 80s. The big guys, the Hogans, the Warriors, the DiBiases, the Pipers, and so on and so on. I mean, I remember getting ridiculed when I was very little for being a fan of the Fabulous Rougeau brothers. Like the Fabulous Rougeau brothers. I'm like, well, what do you like about them? I was like, I love everything. I love how great they are in the ring. They have the best entrance theme next to Demolition. I mean, it was cheesy, but it was perfect. Mm-hmm. I know the current product gets a lot of stick. I get that. I do believe that. I think the problem with WWE is I think there's too many people running it. Where things just it just doesn't sustain the same sort of thing. That's why storylines are forever just all of a sudden ending out of the blue, and people are disappearing and then coming back being repackaged, and then it doesn't work, and But so the tassels, obviously, it's a callback to those days.
Yes,
absolutely. What made you go with the tassels?
Well, I tell two stories, so I'll tell both of them, because I haven't got one answer, and what I mean by that is, as a kid, if we take away me being Dale Jones for a second, looking back, I mean, yes, okay, yeah, I liked Hulk Hogan. I loved Bret Hart. Yeah, okay, yeah, fine. But actually, when I was thinking about wrestling characters and this, that, and the other, I realized when I was a child, still am, when I was a child, I really liked, obviously, Macho Man Randy Savage. I really liked Brutus, yeah, good man. I really liked Brutus Beefcake. And I liked, obviously, the British Bulldog. And I mean, obviously, I like lots of other people. And again, Warrior, you can name all these people. And I remember thinking, you don't see tassels a lot. And then, if we fast forward, I think it was 2004, got older. I think I would have been 18, 19, around that age. And obviously I discovered indie wrestling. I really liked it. There was a particular person who I'm a huge fan for, and depending on the certain meet, so if it's like Martin or even Joey Nails as an example, if you ask them, who's Alex's favorite wrestler, they would actually probably say mine was a wrestler called Paul London. Paul London was one of my favorites, and he started wearing black and white tassels on his boots. And I remember going, that's genius. No one does that anymore. So I'm going to mumble this under my breath, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point, maybe not today. But when I was backyard wrestling with people, because we couldn't afford wrestling boots, I still wanted to look like a wrestler. So I thought, tassels can cover the boots. So it can still look like wrestling boots without having to spend hundreds of pounds. So that's where the original idea of the tassels came from, was when I did the backyard wrestling thing. Then when I broke into wrestling, similar story. Couldn't justify or afford the wrestling boots. But I'm Dow Jones. I'm meant to be Mr. Rich. So I was like, bugger, I need to find a way to look impressive. I need to look important. And then it clicked. I went, I'm going to do what I used to do. I'm just going to get like an old t-shirt, cut it into like tassels, literally tie them around my boxing boots that were like 20 quid from, I don't know, JD Sport, for instance. and then all of a sudden I looked different. And then it sort of evolved from there, where I then started looking back going, yeah, actually it's a throwback to the 80s. And then when I bought actual wrestling boots, there was a real hard decision I had where I was going, do I get rid of the tassels? And it was like, no, I don't want to, but I might need to, because I was really proud of my boots. My boots look really, really cool. So then that's where the ridiculous jacket with all the Macho Man style tassels came from, because I'm a big fan of the what's I suppose commonly referred to as entrance wear. When you think of, okay, there are exceptions of like maybe Steve Austin and The Rock, but when you think of wrestlers making their way to the ring, they usually have some entrance garb that they might take off. And I thought, yeah, I need to do that. So I thought, that can have the tassels. I could take that off. And then if I don't wear tassels in the ring, at least I've still got a reference to it. But yeah, it just became what do they call it? A law to itself, where it's like, oh my God, everything should have tassels now. And my ultimate goal, and I have to admit, I'd love to have done it this year, but of course things didn't happen. I was hoping to get some new wrestling gear, and the joke I was going to do was it was only going to be tassels. Everything was going to be tassely. Absolutely everything. So I'm still tempted to do that in next year if we get the chance. But yeah, basically throwback to old stuff and Paul London.
Paul London. Oh yeah, Paul London. I can see why you enjoyed Paul London so much. I know he did some appearances quite local, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. He did like a training session, and I'll always remember I was in the session, and I think actually I was going through old photos the other day, Stefan. As you can imagine, there's been some time and going through some things, and it's really funny what you find. So I think it was IPW were doing the session. It was in Sittingbourne. Paul London was running a pre-show training session. I think this is like 2007, 2008. Now I'm looking through the photos, and I've got this software. This is going to sound a bit creepy, but it might explain why there's certain content of certain people. So I have a software that face scans. So what will happen is I get folders of everyone. So I think, Stefan, to freak you out, I know I've got 200 photos of you, and it recognizes the face. Anyway, going through, and I was trying to find it. I think this is for maybe anyway, irrelevant. And then Ian Lovelace's face, Ian Lovelace, came up, and I was going, no, it must be the scanner that's gone wrong, because it does that sometimes. And I looked and went, no way. I met Ian 6 or 7 years before I met Ian, because he was in the same.
Yeah,
yeah, and it blew my mind. Anyway, sorry, the fun story though is I remember Paul London getting me in a headlock, and then he was like, yeah, shoot me off the ropes. And I just remember in my head going, oh my God, I'm in a headlock with Paul London. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I love all of this. Oh my God, oh my God. And then I totally forgot what the sequence was. So I send him off, and he just sort of runs into me, and I'm just looking at him, and he's like, you meant to, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I was like, you're amazing. It was one of them weird moments. Anyway, sorry, yeah, fun story for you.
I think it's quite when you were saying like you met Ian Lovelace like 6 or 7 years before you met Ian, sort of thing. I remember, I think it was, did you, if I remember correctly, did you start out training? You did some training with Riot Act Wrestling.
I did, yes.
If I remember, I actually originally met you when you was basically first came in. Because I was on my way out because of my health issues. That's when I had to quit training. I remember, and then I remember I didn't see you for, apart from some clips that Anton will put up from other promotions and etc. that he worked on as well. Because what happened was with my health, I ended up refereeing some Riot Act shows, which I've refereed for the business as well. And I remember seeing you pop up, and I was like, oh, that's that Alex guy. And he's doing really well. Okay, because I remember the only thing I ever took away from meeting you for the first time was, holy cow, this guy is almost borderline obsessed with wrestling as what I am. And that was the, because I didn't get to know you back then properly, but that was the impression I got. And then it wasn't until much later when we finally got to meet properly and got to know each other. Let's go a little bit more personal.
Go for it.
Everyone in UKPW knows the big, long-standing rivalry between referee Martin Raymondson, aka Martin Reed, and Dale Jones. Yeah. But what a lot of the fans obviously do not know is that you two are, I would say, almost inseparable. You two are actually. He was best man at your wedding.
Indeed, and I for his. Yeah, I mean, sorry to ruin wrestling for everyone. It feel, just for the record as well, going back to what I said earlier about when you buy a ticket, you're checking your reality at the door. As a fan, it's that famous quote. As a fan, I always enjoyed wrestlers telling the stories. You want to know a little bit more. So that's sort of how I see this. So I apologise if someone's watching this going, oh, I thought those guys actually hated each other. No, quite the opposite. Very similar, I suppose, with you, Stefan and Ross. I'm always keen to try and get people involved that want to get involved. So I don't know if Martin's gonna hate me for telling this story. I don't know, but firstly, I think Martin's great. As I say, he's my best mate. Like with all things, you'll disagree with things, but then the very next day you're all good again, or at least I hope so. Anyway, no, I think Martin's great, and we met in school. We met through a mutual friend, and to go from the very beginning through, again using the horrible backyard wrestling. We did a little thing for a brief period called Extreme Garden Wrestling. And he was a friend of a friend. And probably like you with me, I was like, this guy loves wrestling. Oh my God, where's this guy been? So anyway, we kept in contact. And then we, through his mum and dad's permission, in theory, we were allowed to run like a 50-meter power cable through their garden, and then their garden backed onto what's called Kingsfrith Park, which is very near the Saver Centre, Hempstead Valley, if anyone lives locally in Medway. And so we set up Medway Wrestling Entertainment, MWE as it's famously referred to. So we did that for ages and ages, and it's one of these subjects that I always find fascinating with wrestling, because people they sort of turn their nose up going, oh, how would you do that? Why would you do that? And wrestling was very still in 2004, 2005. It was still very, something fell over. It was still very closed off. you could go to a training school, and I mean, I know we won't go too much detail now. I'd rather not, but the bullying culture, the closed doors, that was still there. And I used to try to go to certain training schools, and you could tell that you weren't welcome, if you see what I mean. But then I took it as, well, that is wrestling, that is it. And I look back now, and you sort of think, if only they let me in, where would people be now? Because I like to think I'm still around now. I'm still doing things, and I always have been. But the door was slammed in my face loads of times. So because of that, that's sort of what happened with the MWE thing. There's a byproduct, just very, very quickly. I call it as a tape library of all my mates. So bear in mind, this is 2003, 2005. So going through sixth form with Martin and a few other people as well, who will no doubt mention, I'm quite, I don't want to say the word proud, it's the wrong word, but you know, like where people say, WWE have got this big tape library. I have of all of my mates, and I absolutely love it. And it's, I mean, they might not feel the same way, but I definitely do. Like I like to think we've got an incredibly strong bond. And I think it's part of the reason is because I justified buying a camera. Let's film all the wrestling. Let's film all our antics, all that kind of stuff. So we did that. Fine. You grow up, blah, blah, blah. But then I went to university 2005 to 2008, and I had a bit of an agreement with my mum and dad. So I promise I'll get back to the Martin thing in just a sec. And I had an agreement with my parents, which was I'll go to university. I won't do the wrestling thing. I will get my degree. So for 3 years, it was a little deal. Now, it's looking back now, I know what my mum's plan was. She was hoping between the ages of 18 and 21, I would just stop. Like, I wouldn't be interested in it. Oh, I can get a job here doing this, that, and the other. But of course, actually, I think it did the opposite. I was starved of it for 3 years. But in fairness, got the degree, very, very happy. I look back now and I think that was the right decision. So 2008 happens, and I'm like, right, I want to get back into wrestling. So as you mentioned, and I'll just do this bit very quickly, broke in with a company called Right Act Wrestling, did some stuff there. Again, wherever possible, I would try and get people involved. So again, another close friend of mine, will refer to him as Prince Bassi, who was probably my original tag team partner. Again, a hero of mine. So broke in with him. He obviously isn't as into wrestling as me. So when it became a little bit too time consuming or too childish, he obviously went on and did his own thing, which is fantastic. But around, I want to say 2013, might be 2012, but let's just say 2013. Martin had said something in passing. I forget exactly what it was, but I said, how do you fancy being a ref? Because you know all the rules, you know everything. You're doing me a favor because, and I'm going to be harsh, and I might upset a few people with this next sentence, but the referees that I was working with at the time, they were awful. Actually, it was as if they either thought wrestling was real, or they, what's the word? They couldn't, a bit extreme, sorry, I don't like to be this mean, couldn't string a sentence together. And I was getting very irritated at the referees because I'm trying to tell a story about being a bad guy. And it was very difficult when they weren't playing ball. The referee is so important. And I mean, I could talk for hours on that subject.
Yeah, I can't agree with what you said. I've been to shows, again, I'm not going to name drop, don't want to upset anybody, but I have been to shows across the country where you've seen some referees and it's like they're on autopilot. Like there's nobody home. You know, they're not really interacting with the match with the wrestlers. It's like, you know, they'll do the counts and that's about it. They won't really interact. And I see what you mean with that.
And it was bugging me. So I just casually, anyway, fast forward the story, just casually mentioned to Martin going, did you want to be a ref? I think it'd be really good. You'll fit in. He's like, yeah, but what do I do? And I literally said to him, you can't be any worse than what we've got. And I say that in the nicest possible way. Like, you're actually doing me a favor. So anyway, as I said, the rest is history. Martin did that. I think he really enjoyed it. And then UKPW was starting up again. So the timing was almost perfect where, okay, Anton is going to start doing these shows. Fantastic. They're going to be at Medway Park, top notch. A mini goal of mine had always been, I always wanted to wrestle on a show at Medway Park. And the reason for it is it was one of the first wrestling shows I'd ever seen was at Medway Park. So, or that back then called the Black Lion for anyone that, again, that's local. So so all that happened, it was perfect. So so Martin, spoilers, best mate. So wherever I can or wherever we can, again, I don't want to ruin it for you, but if anyone is interested in any match that I have, and it tends to be, very rarely is Martin not the referee for my match. But it's not a prima donna thing. It's not like I'm signing a contract going, I have to have Martin as my referee. Although that's a good idea. I should do that.
Although Dale Jones would sign a contract to say, I don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Steph. Yeah. And so wherever possible, I know Martin, I mean, again, I might be speaking out of turn here, but I do sometimes think Martin has that bug where he's like, yeah, I would like to get in the ring. But a bit like me, really, you probably shouldn't be there. There are better wrestlers. There are better people in better positions. So I always think, look, it's not that I don't take it seriously. I do. But because of the gimmick and the sort of aura I've got around that character of Dale Jones, there's a lot of room for creative ridiculousness, as I'm sure we're going to get into a bit later. So wherever possible, I think my favorite example, we did a bit at Medway Comic and Screen Festival, and we did the other one that I always think of is where Martin was growing a beard. And one of my absolute favorite stories was he was growing the beard, and I'm obsessed. I don't know why, but I'm obsessed with, the hair versus hair match thing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as an adult, don't really care. It's fine. It's just hair. What's a bit? But I remember as a child thinking, what? He's going to shave his head. What? And I've always wanted to do that story, because I can imagine, as I say, families, that's quite a stipulation. Do you know what I mean? People really love their hair.
Yeah.
So when Martin was growing a beard and he'd mentioned, I'm going to shave it off, I was like, whoa. Can I shave it off? And he's like, and I was like, no, hear me out. So then we started chatting, and I said, yeah, what about we do this? And so then he took the idea and went, yeah, I won't tell my wife about it. And I thought, oh, that would be funny. That would be quite amusing. So me and a guy called the Red Eagle, we have a match. It's all good. And I'm annoyed because I pride myself on cameras, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. And I'm annoyed because Martin, I remember in school, he showed me this clip where it's quite a famous clip. It's from 97. It's from a house show. And Triple H is pushing referee Earl Hebner. Earl Hebner bounces off the ropes and pushes back Triple H, and Triple H falls on the ground and cowers. And we always thought that was a really funny clip. So we'd been doing this on shows previously, and so we thought we'd do the same here. So at Medway Park, I'm picking on Martin, all this kind of stuff. And then I shove him. Martin bounces off the ropes, and he's wearing the ref cam, which is what I love about it. Comes off the rope and he shoves me. I bump, and then they're like, whoa, no more Martin. And then Martin turns around. I kick him. I take off his camera, and I hold it in the ring and do all that kind of selfie stuff. Put it on, and this is where I'm annoyed at myself, because I should have tilted it down a bit more, because then I wanted the footage of me cutting his beard off. Now, what we had done is we'd invited a lot of our friends to this show, and obviously they didn't know this was going to happen. And I've heard this anecdotally, because I can't say I was in the audience, obviously, at this moment, but I've got a pair of scissors, and I start cutting the beard of Martin. And of course, the people in the front row are absolutely going mental. They're like, what? Because again, like the kid thing, what? Your hair's that's his beard. What? And then, of course, my mates in the background, they're all standing up and they're applauding, like, yeah, it was rubbish. That beard was awful. Good man. And of course, his wife I think at the time, really hated the beard. And she was annoyed at me and him for not telling her that his beard was going to get shaved off. And I wanted to do, now we didn't go this far, but I wanted to only cut, this would have been a rib if I had the chance. I would have only have cut half of his beard. So it would have been like, this bit would have been clear, and then this bit would have been really, really long. But fine, you can't win them all. Which then led to the cage match, which I know is such a ridiculous thing to say, but of course, Beard Ashmore, that's how we sort of got there. But yeah, so sorry, short version of the story. I've known Martin for 20 years. There you go.
I think also what I mean, people wouldn't know this about you, but one thing, as someone who knows you both personally, I love. I love the fact that when you put a lot of posts up with a lot of memories, you do a lot of montage videos which go through days of like friendships and experiences you've had. I mean, I've sometimes sat there and I've watched in awe of the the camaraderie that you have with these guys in your personal life, and you see in behind the scenes footage when you guys have been to WrestleMania, for example, and you do obviously when you take on Taskmaster and all these things, and everything. It just never seems to be as much as an a-hole Dale Jones is. Alex Gilbert seems to be like there's never a dull moment.
That's very kind.
Like you watch and just go, what? this is actually like crazy. The experiences that you've all shared is actually quite incredible. Going back to where it all started for you, getting into wrestling. What was your earliest wrestling memory? Because we was just talking about hair versus hair match. Now, this is showing my age. The very first time I ever saw a wrestler have his hair shaved off was Brutus Beefcake doing it to the Outlaw Ron Bass.
Yeah, right, yeah.
In 1988. Now, I feel old. What's your wrestling memory which captivated you and started to turn you into a fan?
It's a funny one. Just a quick side note. For me, the hair and hair thing, I had a WrestleMania tape. It was like the best of WrestleMania 1 to 9. I forget which one it was, but it was Brutus Beefcake and Adrian Adonis. And I remember just, again, as a kid going, he cut his hair. What? And I was mind blowing to me as a kid, that was. But no, earliest memory, that's a good question because I'm quite bad at this. I've lots of things wrestling, but I don't want to say it was always around. I don't want to say that because that's not strictly true. But my dad, he would never say it now. He'd never admit it now. But he definitely watched it because that's definitely the way I was exposed. And I think, now bearing in mind, I would have been 4 or 5 around this time. So this is why you're going to have to pardon me with this. But I actually think, because I knew you were going to ask me this question, so I was thinking about it. And I think my earliest actual memory is not actually wrestling, but the toys. Because I think, push come to shove, if I had a gun to my head, I think the first memory I have is at Christmas getting a WWF Hasbro blue ring with a Hulk, and I can remember it vividly, with a Hulk Hogan, a Big Boss Man, and a British Bulldog. I remember those were the first 3 I got. And then I remember watching it, if that makes sense. So it's not the other way round. I remember the toy.
The toys, yeah.
And then I remember watching it going, that's...
Yeah.
It. And that's what happened. And I think that's what hooked me was the toys. I had them in my hand. And I feel bad. I look back now at my parents and I just think, oh my God, I must have been a nightmare. But at the same time, must have been a joy because all you got to do to shut me up is, here are 2 wrestlers. You've got 2 hours. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's the Undertaker versus Virgil. Oh my God, it's Chuck. And I think maybe, because I'm having spoilers for everyone. I'm having way more fun doing the promotional side than I am actually in the ring. And I never thought I'd ever say that, but actually I've had so much fun in 2020. Okay, we haven't been able to put on a show, but all the bits that come to it, and I think it stems back to being 5. I used to love, this is such a ridiculous thing to say, I had all the Hasbro figures, I had all of them. And what I used to do is I would lay them on the floor, and it would be like, and I'd lay them out in like match cards. So imagine like top to bottom. So in my bedroom, one side of the room, it would be like Hulk Hogan versus Bret Hart. Next match is going to be a tag team match between Demolition and the Legion of Doom. Next match, I'm going to have there weren't 3-way matches then, but I'm going to have these 3 in a mini Rumble match. And it was literally, you could walk into the room. And I remember my dad walking in going, are you making WrestleMania? And I'm like, yes, I am. It's my WrestleMania. Yeah, it's going to be this guy against this guy. It's going to be really good. It's going to be really fun. And so I think the correct answer is the toys. But I do remember watching the Royal Rumble 93. No, it's annoying because I'm obviously missing something. There's the toy Gap, and then Royal Rumble '93. Where the reason why I remember it's such a silly thing to say, but I remember I was watching the Rumble. I think Ric Flair had just been eliminated, something like that. And I remember my tooth fell out. And I remember feeling really bad for my dad because obviously there's a bit of blood. It didn't hurt, but of course my dad wants to watch the Royal Rumble, if you see what I mean. And I felt really bad as a 6 or 7 year old, however old I was, because he's now having to sort me out. And of course, it's not in the day of just being able to pause television. So yeah. I'm now upset because we're missing the Royal Rumble. And of course, as a kid, I loved all the Royal Rumble matches with all the figures. So I was getting upset, going, no, I'm missing it. And then we got back down the very moment the Macho Man got eliminated. And obviously it was a bad guy finish. Yeah. I just had a bad experience. And that's why I was like, Bret Hart must win at WrestleMania. Bret Hart must win.
I remember watching that Rumble in '93 when Randy Savage was eliminated by Yokozuna, and I just thought, oh God, now we got this guy like going to go to WrestleMania, and I kept thinking to myself, because obviously you think very differently when you're younger, you know, because it is more realistic in your mind when you're younger. And I just remember thinking, how, and then obviously Mania come along, and we know what happened. Mm-hmm. And as much as of a Hulkamaniac I was, I still actually remember being a little bit annoyed that Hogan actually left as champion. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why. I think it was kind of like, I didn't think he earned it. And that was coming from a Hulkamaniac. It was the only time I was ever like, I don't actually agree with Hogan leaving as champion here, you know. But I think that's brilliant. The Hasbro's figures, I mean, let's not be around it, but we know that you've got, like, a hell of a collection. But I remember I was into WWE before, I think just before the Hasbro's launch. Mm-hmm. And I remember, because you had the different Hogans. I had the
LGN ones that were like that.
Oh, I remember the LGN ones, yeah. But I didn't get those until much further down the line, and kind of just bought them way after. But yeah, it was the Hogan with the Gorilla Press Slam, because you had that one and you had the Bear Hug one.
Oh yeah.
I had the Boss Man with the nightstick and the sunglasses on.
Yes, yeah. With that was just like that was one of them.
One, Jake Snake Roberts with the old
power punch.
Snake. I remember having to buy another one because the dog chewed the snake. I was being absolutely gutted when that happened. But yeah, I remember because Anton Green and I, some people know this, some people don't. We went to primary school together, and that's how Anton and I became friends, because we were just kind of like, hey, you like wrestling? You like wrestling? Oh, this is you've got Hasbro's. I've got Hasbro's. And I remember this day, and it's almost like it was yesterday. Me and Anton, like, probably being about 7 or 8 years old, sitting in the playground when it was bring your toys to school day, and we're sitting in the playground, like, I've got this box, this case, and I'm opening up. I've got my Hasbro's, he's got his Hasbro's, and we're sitting in the playground playing. And you got surrounded because it was so popular. You know, back then, being a WWF fan was all right. You wouldn't get bullied. It wasn't. Yeah. You got older, that people kind of were a bit like, okay, that's sad. You like wrestling, so,
yeah.
You know.
Just to quickly interrupt, Stefan, only because I feel like you'll appreciate this. So So we have the wrestling world. That's great. And then you have the professional world. And there's this quote. I say quote. There's this thing I tell people, and I apologize if this makes me sound really horrible, but it really helped me. Was I always thought wrestling was brilliant. Always thought it was great. So keep that in mind when I tell you this story, because sometimes when I'm having a conversation at work, and this is in previous jobs and even in my current one now, this is such a ridiculous thing to say, but I remember in school, as you say, later on, you'd get a little bit bullied for it. Oh, you like wrestling? Oh, it's gay. All this kind of stuff. And it did get to me But it stuck in my mind because then it got popular again. Because then you had the Attitude Era stuff, and then they got
Yeah.
popular, and then it sort of dwindled and it got popular again. And I'm like, well, I always liked it. So the thing I tell myself is I was always right. I was always right. It's always been good. You're the fickle one. You're the one that's changing your mind. I know it's good when I was 5. I'm now 33 and it's still good. Wrestling is great. So when I'm in my professional world, I tell myself that, where I go, I was right when I was 5. I know my decision is correct because even as a child, I could see what good and bad was. I understood that. And I know it's such a ridiculous thing to say, but it's what I tell myself. I go, I was right that wrestling is cool when I was 5. Therefore, clever.
I just want to touch on something which you mentioned about for you 2020 has been great because you seem to love the behind the scenes more than the actual wrestling side of things. For you, obviously, you've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, as a lot of us know. What is the main? I mean, are you looking at when we relaunch, getting us up to the point where production-wise? Because I've spoken to many people, and I've you should come along to our shows when we relaunch. What you've probably seen from footage I've shared on Facebook, etc., and that we're definitely taking it up a few notches. And I've had people say, production wise, are you looking at where like what IPW used to do? You got a proper entrance thing with the lighting and a brand spanking new sort of ring and all that sort of stuff. Is that kind of what you're going for? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't know because I haven't seen it, but from what I'm hearing, and what better to hear it from the man himself that's in the know, is that kind of what fans can expect, the production, the live experience of what they're going to see. Would that be a fair assumption or comparison to an extent?
Yeah, I mean, short answer is yes. Yeah, is the short answer. To expand on that, I mean, we could just end there. We could just go yes, and then end of interview. No, the real answer, going back to something I said probably half an hour ago, was I want a wrestling promotion that fans and the wrestlers are proud of. And that's not to say that UKPW they weren't proud of. And it's the same with other local promotions. But what happens with British indie wrestling, quote unquote, is that it can look a bit carnival, can look a bit low rent. And it's one of these difficult things. So to get on my high horse for a second, as you say, I've always been doing the video editing. So full disclosure, everyone, pretty much anything you've seen of UKPW has been me sitting in this room, knocking it together. Sorry to spoil it, we don't have an editing team. I wish we did. But however, though, one of the things that happened was, instead of being maybe a bit more selfish and to criticize myself, I look back and I go, no, I should have been a little bit more being a bit more critical. And what I mean by that is, instead of paying £400 for a HD camera, I could have spent £300 on some boots, and I could have bought like a custom jacket made professionally. Instead of buying a GoPro that was £400 at the time, I could have bought something else again, or I could have gone to wrestling school more times, if you see what I mean. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting on my high horse and I should knock myself back down again, but I was very keen because I'd go to shows and they weren't being filmed, and I couldn't get my head around that, because I'm thinking, if they're not being filmed, how are you going to get better? So the filming sort of happened by accident. I started taking a camera to the early shows, and I only wanted to film my match because I wanted to know what was good, what wasn't good, ring positioning, all that kind of good stuff. I'm like everyone's their own worst critic. So I thought, yeah, if I film it, I can judge it and go from there. And then it became easier if I just left the camera in the back of the room and then just left it on, because it was very hard to one. Can you just film my match for me? No, I'm wrestling in 3 minutes. Oh, bah. So I just thought, right, bugger, I'll leave it at the back. And so what's happened is if I counted it, I like to think I'd give WWE Network a run for their money with the amount of content. It's not true, but it's pretty close. And then I was like, okay, I like that camera at the back there. Okay, well, if I had a second camera, I could then cut the footage. I can cut matches together. That'd be good. So I've got a second camera, 2 camera set up. Okay, yeah, if I had a third camera, then I could have all the coverage. Okay, if I bought a 4th camera, and then all of a sudden, and I think this very nice but nasty. A common question I get in my real world, they go, "Oh, Alex, have you ever been really hurt in wrestling?" And luckily, no. The joke answer is because I don't do anything dangerous. I'm too lazy to do anything like that. That's the first answer. But the second answer is I like to think because the wrestler on the other side, they're thinking, "Oh, I need to be nice to Alex because he's the one that's filming it." And I think there's been an element of that where it's like, "Oh, I like Alex because he gives me stuff for free." So I think I've had a bit of a lucky route in. And I know that if Sid and Steve Manelli are watching this, it's the greatest excuse to not help put the ring down. Oh, sorry, guys. No, sorry. I'm doing the camera stuff at the moment. But what Sid is really good at is that he'll keep an eye on me. He'll have one eye looking, going, yeah, okay, he is doing that right now. Okay, and he'll carry out the stuff. And then when I'm done, he'll be like, are you helping out with the ring now? Okay. Anyway, sorry, on that point. So to go back to your UKPW question, so one thing that I think hopefully Anton won't be offended when I say this, but Anton was very, very proud of the content and the production and this, that, and the other. And it really was on a shoestring budget, because when you're trying to promote a show, really you need to be putting the money in the promotion. So you're sending money. So let's just make up some numbers. You might spend, I don't know, £100, £200 on advertising it, be it newspaper, posters, whatever. But that £200 could go on ring aprons, or it could go on lighting, or it could go on whatever. But that £200, if you put it into promotion, you're going to sell the tickets and you'll make the money back. But having lights isn't going to make you your money back, like in theory, in principle. So, but it's still worth an investment, if you see what I mean. It's still there. But of course, the money...
the experience. So when people are going to a wrestling show, it looks like they're attending a wrestling show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like, as you say, you mentioned all these other promotions, and it's that phrase, you spend money to make money, that kind of thing. And it was a minor, I don't want to say a minor frustration, that's probably even a bit too extreme, but that was a little bit of a gripe with me, going, no, we've got a good thing going. If we spent a bit more money on this, this and this. So to go back to the cage thing, and I'll tell this story, I think this will be the first time publicly going to be explained, but I really had to basically bully Anton into doing it, because I was saying no one does cage matches. They're rare. I'm telling you, if you book me versus Ashmore in a cage, that will draw people. So if we just rewind a bit, there was the original plan of that. So Anton was very keen for me to be the UKPW champion, which again was a massive compliment. And I still weren't really sure about that, because I was like, hey, I'm like, if you did a league table, I am not the best wrestler, nowhere near that. I'm the bottom 5 relegation zone kind of level wrestling ability wise, but I like to think I can make it up with other bits and bobs. Now, for the record, I'd love to be a brilliant wrestler. For the record, I love all the technical stuff. However, we'll come on to that later. So Anton's like, yeah, I want you to be the champion, because I think you can draw people in with not liking you, but still sort of liking you, that they want to pay a ticket. Wrestling's moved on, and one thing that I forget who it was, one of the Ring of Honor guys, they said, don't think of it as heel and face anymore. Think of it as protagonist and antagonist. Because if you got someone that you really don't like, you're not going to pay to see it. You're just not going to watch. I think the jokey phrase is X-Pac heat. That's always the joke. So that always stuck with me, going, yeah, I need to be a bit tongue-in-cheek, because the parents want to laugh at what I'm saying, but the children are going to want to see me dead. So that was why Anton wanted me to be the champion. He's like, yeah, you're exactly what I'm looking for. So there was a day planned in 2015, 5 years ago, where I was going to be the champion, and I was going to face James Mason. So James Mason was the champion. And the original plan was I was going to beat James Mason, which is already mind-blowing. Then that would annoy people. I could then go, I've beaten the best wrestler in the whole country. I'm now the best wrestler in the whole country. I'm the best. Any wrestler out there that wants to take me on, and we were going to do like a 9-month, people come in and they lose. Someone comes in, they lose. Build me up. But the idea of building me up with the belt is to make the belt important, but also to go, Dow Jones keeps weaseling his way out of it. We need to do something. So then eventually, I believe the original plan was for then Ashmore to win the Rampage. I'm the champion. And then basically, now the original idea was to have a match and then I win through weaseling out. He then says, I challenge you next time at Medway Park. So be at Medway Park. I challenge you next time at Medway Park in a cage match. Oh my God, I've got to see the cage match. Oh my God. So champion versus Ashmore, we're going to see. But that was the original plan. It was going to be for the belt. However, I'm going to use the phrase poor promotion. Now, that's a bit unfair on Anton because it wasn't Anton's fault. But the show that I was going to win the belt on, we were in Luton. We didn't really promote in Luton because no one really knew us. And I think Anton was hoping someone else was going to be doing the promotion. So when we got there were like 30 people in this giant hall. It was meant to be like a second Medway Park. It was going to be our second venue. There were like 30 people there. And it's why you'll very rarely see footage from it, because the matches are great, but the aesthetic of it looks awful. And Anton on the day went, I can't get you to win the belt. I can't, because it's going to make it look rubbish. It's not going to have any gravitas. No matter what we do, close camera tricks, whatever, we need the people booing. So that idea got vetoed. But I also think Anton was going, cage is going to be a little bit expensive. So this is where, I don't know, maybe I get a little bit of heat with some of the wrestlers. Maybe I do. Is I have a slightly different opinion with British wrestling where, don't get me wrong, be a really good wrestler, learn all the stuff, go to all the training schools. But I've sort of had success doing it, all the non-wrestling things. If I focus on my actual real life career, if I focus on this, still do wrestling on the side. If I focus on this and work my way up. Now, to talk political, we won't get too political. But there's a theory called trickle-down effects. And the idea is if I earn a lot of money that I then invest in the wrestling, everyone wins. So I was thinking other wrestlers can be really good at wrestling. But if I earn money over here and then I reinvest it over here, everyone wins. So that's what's sort of happening now, is that the money that I earn in real life can then get invested into this one, be it websites, be it, so going back to your question, production things, promotion, even booking better wrestlers, quote unquote. So when it came to the cage match, I said to Anton, I go, look, I'm telling you, Anton, you book a cage. Okay, we can't do the storyline now, but I'm telling you, if you book a cage at Medway Park, it will bring loads of people in, because it was upping the production. So Anton rightfully said, look, I'm not sure. I believe you, but I just can't. So I then said, I will give you a deposit. This is the money for the cage. If you do not make your money back, this is the money. But if you do make your money back, I want the deposit back as such. So Anton essentially booked the cage, knowing that if he didn't make more money, I would fork up the difference. And then if he did make the money, he's made more money, if you see what I mean. So that's what happened there. So that's the true story.
It's in a safe position. Yeah.
And essentially what happened was, I'm thinking selfishly, this is the coolest thing I'm ever going to do. There's nothing going to this match with Kyle Ashmore. Ashmore can't say enough good things about the guy. Like, I mean, we don't have enough time to go into detail, but I think the guy's great, and I think he's criminally underrated. So I'm thinking, right, how can I make sure that this match is great? So I had this idea of an ending of the match. We'll come to that in just a second. I had this idea. I was like, right, that would be great. If we do that ending and there's about 350 people watching, that will be the clip to promote UKPW going forward. That was the whole premise. So even just as the worker, even just as the wrestler, I'm already thinking, if Ashmore agrees to doing this one spot can be used for years to promote our promotion. So then one of the things I learned is I quite enjoyed promotion. And to be very big-headed, and I apologize now, I made a 1-minute video testing out my production skills. I made a 1-minute video, and it was me as Dow Jones, like, hey, hi, I'm Dow Jones, I'm amazing, all this kind of stuff. But I had all the graphics. Of like a wrestling ring, and it would spin round, and there was all this other stuff, and it was like, this April 7th, it will be Dow Jones versus Ashmore in a steel cage match. That's right, you're going to see a steel cage. And there's all this video, uploaded it, so got Anton to upload it onto the UKPW page. And that video was seen by about, I don't know, 5,000 people. Now, we all know that it doesn't convert like that. It's seen by 5,000, you don't sell 5,000 tickets. But what does happen, going back to something we said about an hour ago, I'm a huge fan of recommendations. So in Facebook world, you tag someone. And when I then realized, we're onto something, because the video looked cool, and the clips that I'd used were of Ashmore doing like a senton, and I like to believe I'm quite good at bumping. I like to believe. So all the clips of me getting beaten up looked quite funny and cool. You put that all together in this 1-minute clip. In theory, they had to put more chairs out on the day. I had never been so happy before we'd even started the match. I was like, this is great. And I remember talking to you, I don't know if you remember, but I remember talking to you at the interval saying, Stefan, I need a big favour. We've got 2 cage matches here, blah, 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 but I need you to do this really big, long introduction because I wanted it to feel like a big fight. I wanted it to feel like that boxing thing, right? We've got the biggest heel in the company against the biggest face in the company. But of course, there's no belt on the line. So it was like, well, so we tried to do all the bells and whistles around it. But anyway, to finish the story, Ashmore, I said to him weeks prior, I went, do you think you can do a double stomp from the top of the cage onto me? And Ashmore sort of like, are you sure, mate? Are you sure? Like, and again, I can't stress enough, Ashmore was so professional and actually very, very kind, because he kept saying, look, Alex, look, are you sure? Because that's not what you normally do. You're not that guy. You're not that ridiculous bumper. But if we just pause and rewind to my backyard wrestling days, Martin power bombed me through a table that was on fire. Now, not many people know that. So when it comes to the ridiculous bumps, I'm a fan of ridiculous bumps, but one of them. I'll do one. I won't do loads. I'll do one. And it's a moment. So I said to Ashmore, look, I trust you. Even if it goes wrong, I know it's not on purpose. I know it's because I could see it in his eyes. Maybe I'm reading too much into him, but I think he was going, what if this goes wrong? You could break your neck. This could be a problem. I said, Ashmore, worst case scenario, if it does go wrong, I know you did not do it on purpose. I believe you're the best wrestler here. It's going to be fine. Anyway, fast forward, he does the move, big reaction, and brilliant moment. Probably, I don't think anything's ever going to beat that moment for me.
I think as well, it's interesting. I'm really enjoying you explaining how you personally was feeling and how Kyle Ashmore was feeling on that day. Because I remember on that day, I've never even the last match I had, which was the match with Roth at the last show we did for the title. I've never seen you so invested in, like, you almost seemed unsettled in some ways. Like this was a big make or break thing. It was a huge deal for you, and that's the because. Obviously, we always have our little briefings before shows. You always say to me, which I appreciate, and I wish more of the talent would do this. So, guys, when you're watching, if you ever want anything particular done over commentary or whatever, come see me and Ross. We're there for you. We tell your story. Mm-hmm. But I remember it was very different. You was like, I really, really need you to do it like that. And I was thinking, okay, this obviously means a great, great deal. And it was really interesting seeing you. Like that, because you're usually just so you come in, you're in your stride, you're like, yeah, I'd like to do that. You guys do this if you can. If you can get this done, great. If not, doesn't matter. Blah blah blah. So relaxed and all that lot. And obviously, as I've said to you before, many times before, your advice and have been able to have those conversations with you, they're a big deal because they help me develop. They help me try and do the best that I can. But to see you on that day. There was something different in the air, and and I don't, and it was really, really, so it's been really good to actually have you on here explaining that, because it really does fit those pieces of the jigsaw, so to speak, from what I took away from the experience of that day. But I'd like to believe it all paid off, because as we said, the crowd was amazing that day. It was a special event. It was a shame that the title wasn't on the line to give it that extra little bit of a thing. But you are UKPW champion.
Hey! Oh, but before you move on, Stefan, I need to tell you this extra bit about the cage match. There's one extra bit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. So there's a couple of regrets about that match. So firstly, yep, great, fine, good. But the regrets, I have sort of two regrets. One is that it wasn't for the title. That's the first thing. It wasn't for the title. The second one, and this is where I learned that communication is so important, because I think I told Anton or I told Martin, but I don't think I told both. I don't think I told the ring crew. So it's let me clarify. I'm not blaming anyone. It's entirely my fault. But there was this one thing that I always loved, and I thought I'd love to recreate this moment. And I'm gutted I didn't get to do it. So I had the camera set up. So again, spoilers, everyone. I set up all the cameras, or used to at least anyway, and set up all the cameras. And what I wanted was that move killed. Like, it's a deadly move. It was a double stomp from the top of a cage. I wanted to sell that. Like, ridiculous. How do you sell that to go, that is it? He's done. This year-long ridiculousness. So I was like, right, well, we haven't got a stretcher. Can't carry him out on a stretcher. Also, that can have negative connotations. Like, no, he's seriously hurt. So I was thinking, right, what can we do that's still a little bit funny, but also like, no, he's dead. And I said to either Martin or Anton, I forget who, but I said, when the show ends, don't move me. Leave me there. Leave me alone. No one help me. And let the ring come down around me. Because while the audience are leaving, they do get to see some of the stuff. And I said, no, leave me there as long as possible, because I want someone to take a photo about 30 minutes later and I'm still in the ring dead. Because I thought it'd be really funny if someone took a photo from the balcony and like half of the ring is down and I'm still on the floor. Because CM Punk did this on a SmackDown where I forget what the move was, but he sold it and he was dead. And he was just laying there forever. And I thought, yes, that's a great idea. But yeah, sorry, that's my regret.
Mentioned that with CM Punk. In November 2010, I went to Butlins in Minehead for the WWE Live weekend. CM Punk, the main event was Kane versus Big Show for the World Heavyweight Championship. Kane was champion. CM Punk interfered in a match, and Big Show hit him with the big punch, the weapon of mass destruction, and he sold it. And literally everyone had left. Punk was still flat out in the ring, and he actually got all the the referees to come out, and they all carted him off almost like he was completely dead. He was like arms spread out, and sort of just did this little thing where he sort of lifted his head up, looked around like this, and he was like, boom, face planted straight back down again. And it was during the time he was doing the Straight Edge Society, where he hair shaved and all that. So I've actually witnessed Punk doing that. Everyone's leaving the arena and Punk's still in the ring, motionless as a dragged out. Now, here's a little surprise for you, I only discovered this yesterday.
Oh, God.
I've got footage from after that cage match where the cage is surrounded by younglings.
Yeah.
Where Martin has kept you locked in the steel cage.
Yeah.
And Dale Jones is pleading with him to let him out. And Martin is saying to Dale things like, do you apologise for this? He's like, yes. I'm actually going to make sure that you get that feed, because that might be a good for an outtake upload.
Yeah.
You to see, because I watched it for the first time. I forgot I even recorded it, but I think you might like that. So I'll make sure I'll get that to you.
That's very kind, Steph. I would like to see
It was fun, especially with all the kids shouting abuse to you as well.
Because that was what the problem was. I was like, no, I want to stay dead. But then I realised that no one was leaving until I left the cage. And I'm going, no, get him away. But of course, if I'm dead, I can't then shout out to Martin, get rid of everyone. Like it was a bit awkward. So I was like, oh, for the love of fine. So then I got up and then obviously that moment happened.
Oh, yes, that was hilarious. That was hilarious. So what would you, let's go somewhere, because technically, and this is, and I know, because I know CJ Gunner and I had this conversation about Buff Broadside being interregional champion. You're already now just over a year as UKPW champion.
I know, how hilarious.
0 shows. What obviously in your mind, what do you expect when we go up and down, regarding the championship? Because obviously there's plans. We know people have seen. Hopefully there might be some updates done to some of the titles. The interregional championship, there's a question mark over whether or not it will remain the interregional championship. What can you, if you can at all, elaborate on any of these for the fans watching?
Good question. And again, anyone that's watching it and has got this far in, I think they deserve, again, I have the utmost respect for all of our audience, because they, as I said to you before, they pay their hard-earned money, they choose to watch our product. And if they're choosing to watch this, I think it's only fair that I answer that question. So obviously the original plan before all the craziness happened is obviously we were going to do 2020. We were going to do some things. And the general gist was going to be basically to redo the Ashmore storyline, but this time maybe not necessarily with Ashmore, but have me as champion and then weasel out of a lot of things. That was kind of the general gist. Now we still might do that. Spoilers, sorry. But I'm very keen to keep the lineage of the title reigns. I know companies have to do it, but it's only when they have to do it that they should do it. The vacation thing, we need to vacate this title, we need to do this. So I'm very keen to have all the original champions defend their belts on the first show back. Very, very keen to do that. So that's the first thing, that like in theory, the pandemic didn't exist. In theory. Obviously it does, but from a UKPW timeline point of view, as you rightfully say, Dow Jones will be the longest reigning champion with no defenses. So that's, as you can imagine, is 100% what I'm going to be saying, to wind up as many people as possible. It is frustrating that obviously it's gone on this long, the gap. But yeah, the short answer is everything we want to keep the same. The interregional thing, I mean, to address it, the reason why that's on no decision's been made. Let's just be clear. We still want a what's commonly referred to as a mid-card title. And if you think of it from, let's use the current AEW product as an example, the world title shifts hands once in a blue moon. 3 months, 6 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever. So you have much longer reigns as champion. But the mid-card title can almost change, not weekly, but regularly. And that's quite nice because you want to have that impression of competitiveness. If you have that, you don't know who's going to win. Oh, it might change in my head. There's an element of excitement. And again, I'm very keen to bring that in. But the thing I don't like about a lot of wrestling companies is the main belt and the middle belt are basically the same. They are the same. And I remember as a teenage boy, I very much enjoyed the ECW world title, TV title, because I'm a huge Rob Van Dam fan. And maybe push come to shove, I might say he's my favorite. But he had that TV title for like 23 months, had really good matches, really competitive. But after a while, that belt felt more important than the main belt. And that was sort of what I tried to do with the Dow Jones title, was make that feel like the main belt, because the main belt wasn't being defended all the time. But anyway, that's a different story for a different day because we've been chatting for so long. But sorry, everyone that's still watching. So coming back to the interregional belt, I think it's the name that I have an issue with, because we call the names of the titles. This is, bearing in mind, I'm overthinking things. I'm a big fan of overthinking. Bit of advice to anyone at home that's watching this. Oh, you overthink things. It's only overthinking if you don't get an outcome. You're allowed to overthink anything as long as you're getting outcomes. So I'm overthinking the names of the belt. They're just names for belts, really, at the end of the day. However, commonly referred to as either the UKPW Heavyweight Championship or the UKPW World Title. I always found that very funny because it's UK World, and then it just doesn't sound right, does it? And then you had Heavyweight Champion, and no offense to Theodore Powers, but Theodore Powers was the champion for about 6-7 months, and he was clearly not a heavyweight. And it's not that it annoyed me, that's the wrong word, but it just went, nah, this doesn't sound right. So I'm very keen to get the names right. So UKPW champion, you're the champion of the company. I've even toyed with just the phrase British champion. Like that's something we can do. But again, that's for later on. The interregional, on principle, I like it because regionally, I mean, I like the phrase intercontinental champion. I like that word. So the phrase inter is quite nice. There's a Pavlovian dog, kind of like inter means middle, means good wrestlers, that kind of thing. So I like the inter part of the title name. But regional, we only really wrestle in the southeast. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I'd love there to be ultimate plans to do national tours, all this kind of stuff. But let's be realistic, that's not going to happen for at least a long time. So I don't like interregional when we're only in Kent for now.
So is it a case of keep the the lineage intact, the history intact, and just rebranding the name? So basically in the history books it would say, under UKPW Interregional Champion, you have your list of champions, then say 2021 championship rebranded as, I don't know, for example, the UKPW Southeastern Champion. Example. And then it will have the current holder. So if, for example, it's still Buff Broadside, it will start with Buff Broadside defending as it's just had the name change, and then going forward it would be known as that sort of kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the mini outrage I've had from people makes me go, okay, maybe I won't change it at all. Maybe we don't change it at all. Because again, I'm overthinking it. It was like, I know you mentioned it in another chat with other people talking about a women's division coming on board. Something I always thought, fantastic. There we go. Look at that. Yeah. Same page. We're on the same page. Yeah. It was, again, it's one of these things where I look at UKPW. Maybe it's from my professional world that I'm looking at it and I'm going, right, well, what's the strength? What's the weakness? Commonly referred to as SWOT analysis. Right, the strengths of this. What's the weakness? We don't really have any. We have no female wrestlers, and I'm very keen to get that family audience. And I'm going to sound a bit preachy, and I apologize again to anyone that's watching and going, oh, shut up. But I've learned in 2020, of all the things I've learned in 2020, is that there are people that need to look at someone to go, I want to be like you, or you're cool, I like you, so I should try to be like you. So if I'm trying to get families, traditionally wrestling is a boy sport, for instance. Now, we do get young girls in the audience. We do get families in there. But I often wonder, if we had women wrestlers, the girls and even the mums to a certain extent can then go, oh, so women do this. Oh, they do that. And there are some really talented women on the British scene. There really are. And for the record, if I backtrack a little bit, to say that we've had no women in UKPW is an exaggeration. There, obviously, we have had the odd female match, but there's been nothing built around it. So I'm very keen to do that. But then, this is what I meant by overthinking. I'm then thinking, but if I make a women's belt, they can only wrestle for women. And what I mean by that is, let's say, so I don't know how much indie wrestling you or any of our audience watch, but for instance, if we go pre-AEW for a second, there's a thing called independent wrestling TV. There's an independent wrestling title. And the female wrestler Chris Statlander had that belt for a long time. But she pretty much would only do the intergender matches because she's meant to be wrestling quote unquote better wrestlers because she whatever. So what I'm trying to get at is that by having a women's belt, are we pigeonholing people? Was my question. Like, what happens when? So let's use a WWF example. China at one point looked like she was going to challenge for the world heavyweight title. And then at WrestleMania 17, she wins the women's title. Don't know about you, Stefan, but I even remember at the time going, well, she's been Intercontinental Champion.
I actually thought it was almost pointless because I was like, well, there is no other woman like her. So how is she going to be dethroned as champion? And obviously it was actually towards the end of her WWE career. So, it kind of didn't pan out that way. But, so, her best moments were against people like, and these are no joke guys either. I mean, Chris Jericho, Jeff Jarrett, to name two guys that she's been in the ring with. She mixed it up with X-Pac, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn. She competed and didn't look out of place. And that takes a special type of woman. And I know there are some women out there. Some people might say, "Oh, Tessa Blanchard, for example, when she was Impact, and things like that." So I don't think it's, from my point of view, pigeonholing. I think as long as you've got the expansion in mind to say, well, actually, just because these women are competing for a women's championship in the women's division, that's not to say that they can't step out of that division
exactly.
and mix guys from time to time. We could have intergender matches, which UKPW haven't had, to my knowledge, before. We could have, I don't know, for example, Smart Money and a female in a 6-person intergender match against Business and another female. For idea. As long as you don't restrict it to women only, I don't see an issue with that. But obviously, I don't make the decision.
No, but this is exactly the point, Stefan. So one of the things I'm quite proud of, and I don't know if it's like with Barry Harwood's patting yourself on the back, is one of the things that, in my opinion, with a lot of other promoters and in the past, is keeping too many things to themselves. So I've told you my thought, like, oh, I'm worried about this. And then when I get 3 or 4 people that go, no, don't worry about it. So it's like the like literally asking the women. So again, I'd rather not reveal who we've potentially got lined up. But I said, look, ladies, I really would like to do this. I want to get a belt made. I want to do this. But once it's made, I can't reverse it. So did you want to call it a women's title, or do we call it something else? Because I don't want people to think, well, it's just for women. If you see where I'm coming. So,
you sort of mean along the lines of where TNA called it the Knockouts Champion, not the women.
Yeah, like things like divas as well. Like these words, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't. I mean, maybe it's me being hypersensitive on it, but I don't want to offend anyone. Just like, what do you think?
Well, I think that's a good testament to you, because you're saying, it's almost like saying to them, look, this is going to be your championship. This is going to be your main prize, so to speak. What do you want? And I think that's pretty good, as if to say, oh, we're making decisions. This is what it's going to be. I kind of respect. I think that's actually a really good move to actually say to them, look, this is going to be for you. What do you think?
Yeah, and my complaint about it's difficult because I'm going to sort of sound like I'm being contradictory, but something I was very keen on doing right from the outset when myself and Jack took over was he's 10 years, 12 years younger than me, so he also has a different level of experience, and then you add Martin as well that's got his experiences. So you got the 3 of us making decisions. But actually, that's still a little bit of a hierarchy. And okay, someone has to have the final say. I get that. That's how leadership works. But I'm a huge fan of collaboration. And like, who's to say that I'm right? And as hopefully you can see in this interview as well, I concede. You're right. I didn't think of it that way round. I only thought of it from my angle. I think we've talked about this, Stefan, before privately, but there's an image that I really, really love of, to use a Simpsons joke, there's like an inanimate carbon rod that's just hanging in the air. And if you shine a light on the rod, from one angle, it looks like a circle. But if you shine a light from the other angle, it looks like a rectangle. So you've got 2 different points of view on the same thing. But when you look at the shadow, one is a circle, one is a square, but they're both right because it depends on where you look at the shadow. And that's how I see the wrestling thing, is going, right, well, I see it this way, but I'm not, so to use the exact analogy, but I'm not a female wrestler trying to make my name on the British scene. So I'm going to build a women's title, but is that right? What do you think? Well, actually, Alex, I think that's perfectly fine because actually, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I can see where you're coming. Actually, it's not a big deal. We'd rather be on the show. We'd rather be contributing. A women's title is not disrespectful because you have, and the analogy someone gave me was running. You have a women's 100 meters and a men's 100 meters. And in certain sports, they are mixed. But that's because it is an even playing field. But you still have the, and I was like, okay, yeah, fair, I concede. We'll make the women's title. Does it need a name? No, just call it women. It would only confuse things. Oh, okay, fair shout. And that's my motto personally. I don't know if Jack agrees with me necessarily, but the more input, I want a community. I want people going, no, let's all go forward. Because as I say, my goal has now changed. So I'm 33. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel of my wrestling now. But what I can now see is going, right, well, I've got 30, 40 potential years of promoting in theory. And you go, right, can I create opportunities for other people that I didn't have when I was 21? Can I, because again, as I said to you at the beginning of the interview, I remember my first wrestling match, walking out. I was really proud of everything. I was really, really happy with that. But video footage and photos made it look rubbish. And it took a long time before I could be quite proud of what it looked like. In wrestling context, great. But in a non-wrestling context, here's some dude walking out some fire doors. So I'm very keen to give people lots of opportunities. If you don't mind picking on you, Stefan, as an example, I'm a big fan of, as I say, of yourself. But a lot of other companies, if they do commentary, they do it post-recorded. And again, that's fine. There's nothing against that. But let's pretend for a second, Stefan, your ultimate dream is to be a live commentator for the WWE. Well, it'd be nice if you had 5 years experience of calling matches live. So that's why I was very keen about creating that role. So the more jobs, so to give you an exclusive, if you will, something we're now looking at is live streaming, looking at live streaming shows. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not mind-blowing to anyone. Oh my God, live streaming. Oh, but more specifically, camera cuts. Can we do a live stream that cuts to multiple angles, very similar to a big major promotion? Yeah. So it means time cues. It means the announcers have to talk when they announce. You get the idea. So we're looking into this. I'm not saying it's going to be ready anytime soon, but things like what's called a vision mixer that flicks between the cameras. That's a cool job. Do you know what I mean? And I'm a big fan of, let's say, I'm going to pick on, well, any of the wrestlers. If any of the wrestlers who are 20, 21, even older, younger, whatever, but they, in their real world, they're looking for jobs. I want to be their reference to help them get a real job. If I can make wrestling a real job, that'd be great. But imagine writing on a CV, yeah, no, I'm a vision mixer for UKPW. Imagine saying that in an interview. What's that? Sorry. Oh, actually, it's my responsibility to have the time cues, and I'm actually in charge of all of this, that, the other. All of a sudden, now when they go to an interview, they sound better than everyone else that's got no experience. So one of my little back things in my mind is going, how many opportunities can I give people? How many more chances in can we get? And what's happening is that what was a roster of 15 to 20 people over 2020 has become a group of 60, 65. And if any of them are still watching at this point, or if anyone is interested, what I'm really gutted about is not being able to show everyone just how serious we are. And I really don't want to give the game away. I know, Stefan, you know a few little insider things as well, but we've got so many things lined up that look really cool and that people are going to be proud of. But of course, for it to all be pulled off, we actually need everyone pulling in the same direction. And just to finish off on my high horse, I'm a big fan of a wrestling promotion in America, or what was a big fan of a promotion called Chikara, and their leader, a gentleman by the name of Mike Quackenbush. And he he allowed this culture. So he had about 120 people in total to do all the jobs. So that would be the wrestling, the ring crew, the cameras. And I'm like, yes, that's what you want. You want this community where the cameraman doesn't feel scared to go up to the main star of the show and say, when you do your finishing move, can you do it in that corner? Because I know that will look better. At the moment, in a lot of promotions, what scares me is I don't think the cameraman has the guts to do that. And I don't want that. I want everyone on the same page. I want anyone being able to go, hey, Alex, look, I know you're busy. When you got 5 minutes, can we have a chat? I've got an idea. Great. That's my only worry is time. That's the only thing. And my ultimate goal is to make everyone happy. And any fans that are watching this at home, if you followed us up to this point, firstly, thank you. That's the first thing. If you've been to any of our shows, again, I can't thank you enough. But going forward in 2021, can't stress this enough, guidelines. Of course, we're not going to break any rules. We don't want to break any rules. Of course we don't. Want to make sure everyone's safe. That goes for the wrestlers. That goes for, obviously, all the ridiculousness that's also happened in 2020. Of course we do. We want to make sure it's all good. But I'm very keen for people to get back, as you say, get back to normal. And this is where I think Jack and Martin are quite good at reining me in, because I probably value people's mental health more than anything else. So getting back to normal, there's a lot of people where wrestling, that is their profession. That is what they do. And they're not getting money for it. They're not bringing in income. And that actually really scares me, because I would love to have done that when I was 21, just drop everything and whatever. Maybe I'm lucky. I've gone a different route, but there are a lot of people now that have hit this brick wall. And now that maybe they're thinking to themselves, oh, what's the point? And that's the thing that scares me the most, is how many people after lockdown will either stop or they've lost the passion for something. So I'm very keen to bring it back.
There's already been, I think, a couple of names that we know of that have seemed to be taking a step away from the business, unfortunately, which hopefully will only be a temporary thing, because that, in my opinion, they would be huge losses, not to just UKPW, but to British wrestling overall. But I think it is very important what you said. It's paramount what you said. I think to have an environment, because I've always said UKPW, sometimes it feels like a family within itself, especially for many of us that have been in and around UKPW for a number of years. I mean, myself, it's been nearly coming up to 7 years, you've been there for a long time, as a lot of the other guys have, and in order to have a place where you feel safe, no matter what your role is within the company, even as a fan, knowing that everyone's friendly, everyone is respectful. I think that will help get you the best out of the promotion when everyone actually arrives happy with the people they're surrounded by, happy with the way things are run, happy with the experience overall. And I think that's going forward, especially with all the negative stuff that's happened in British wrestling on and off over the last couple of years, it will be great after COVID. Hopefully, a lot of people, no matter what promotion they run or they work for, hopefully they've had 2020 to reflect on all the negative stuff that's happened before and go, you know what, we've been deprived of what we love, and at the moment we don't know when it's going to end, but hopefully they've looked at it and reevaluated things and gone, do you know what, when we get back to it, how are we going to make it the best possible for everyone? And I think that's one thing I do love about the way yourself and Jack have done, because you've been very thorough, you've been very transparent with everyone privately. You've put guidelines out about what you expect, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. But we've hit an hour and a half.
Of course,
which is fantastic. There's still so much to cover. I would like to extend an invitation if you would like to continue this for a part 2, where we can. We'll scale down the time scale, but we will cover other aspects that we've yet to touch on. Because as you've said, thank you to everyone who's still watching this. I hope you found it insightful so far, as we're trying to get to know Alex as well as Dale Jones, and obviously what's going on behind the scenes, etc. as well. So if you'd accept a part 2, then I'd love to pick up where we've left off. And I
think we'll see what people say.
Absolutely, but from now, Alex, Dale, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Ladies and gentlemen, Dale Jones, aka Alex Gilbert, jack of all trades, the man partner. There he goes, posing.
Oh yeah, the Hogan Hasbro. Pleasure, Stefan.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one. Pleasure, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.